At any rate, I'm Nick Ray, Acting Dean of the College of Applied Science and Technology. So happy to welcome you, both folks here in Sierra Vista and online, to our second distinguished speaker event of the academic year, with Chris Tidrick. Before I introduce Chris, just like to do a few thank yous for the folks who put this together. Dimitri and his committee, Distinguished Speaker Series Committee, and Ariel and Amanda, and the UA South Foundation, which helped with some of the funding. And we have a third event, I think, coming up in April. Maybe you'd like to say a word about that?
Sure. On April 1, we have Doug London, who was for 30 years under a CIA officer, clandestine officer in the CIA, who served in the former Soviet republics, including Russia, and was at one point a station chief. So that trip is being funded by an outside foundation, which is great. He's coming to talk to us on April 1st at 4:30 p.m. in the University Services Building.
Okay, so to our guest today, thank you, Chris. Chris Tidrick. Actually, Chris's name was given to us by Josh, so I should also thank him. And Josh is aware that Chris is a leader in IT, particularly at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where he is the Chief Information Officer in the Gies College of Business. Chris has Government International Relations Bachelor's from Notre Dame and a Master's in Urban Planning from University of Illinois. He's been involved in many exciting projects relating to AI at his home university, and we very much look forward to hearing what you have to say on that topic today, as I think there are few topics more relevant to the future of higher ed. So it's all yours, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Ray, for the introduction and for the invitation to speak as part of the CAST Distinguished Speaker Series. It's really an honor to be here today. I consider it a stroke of good luck that I crossed paths with Josh Pauley during the Smith Group Client Advisory Board meeting that focused on how artificial intelligence was impacting society. My immersion into the world of generative AI has been full of these types of right place, right time moments. When ChatGPT took the world by storm in early 2023, I started to assess the opportunities and challenges that it would present for the Gies College of Business, where I'm the CIO. I approached our campus CIO, Mairead Martin, and asked her what campus was planning to do. A lot of times in business schools, we're the ones that sort of lead the innovation. I'm like, this is brand new. Let's do this as a campus. Let's do this as a university. So I went to her. She returned my question with a statement and a request. She said, we need to develop a coherent strategic response, and we'd like you to lead it. And so definitely a case of be careful what you ask for. But so I found myself diving into what some considered an existential threat to our proven model of university teaching and learning. The campus initiative that I was leading became known as the Generative AI Solutions Hub. I lead a group of 50 faculty and staff in building community and training, developing use cases and best practices, and making investment recommendations in 3 areas: teaching and learning, research, and administrative operations. While I'm proud of the valuable work that we've done through the Solutions Hub, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions about it during the Q&A, I'd like to spend most of our time today talking about AI through a more personal human lens. So I've written a lot over the course of my life. As you learned in the introduction, at Notre Dame, I was a political science major and was one logic class short of a philosophy minor. couldn't quite get that logic class done. So I can't say I have a philosophy minor, but I took a lot of philosophy classes. And as you know, in philosophy classes, you do a lot of writing, a lot of thinking. I've also written online for more than 2 decades through a variety of blogs and other online media. But in January of 2023, I took something that was new, ChatGPT, for a spin, and very seriously wondered if anyone would ever find my writing valuable again. Even though I found its writing style the equivalent of a high school student who just discovered adjectives, it was still an above average writer with a seemingly endless stream of the world's knowledge and expertise at its disposal. So why in the world would I bother writing when anyone on the internet with an internet connection could just ask ChatGPT the answers? Why would anyone want to read someone else's writing, full of its quirks, wasted words, and perhaps questionable veracity, when they could just get a succinct and mostly correct answer from AI? My own existential crisis as a writer paralleled the tremors rumbling through higher ed. What good was my insight if anyone could dial up the entire corpus of human writing in a matter of seconds? I stood in that writer's block for months. That said, I did get through it. In October 2023, a colleague found something that I said insightful. She said, "You should write about that." And she didn't say could, she said should. It wasn't a complex concept. I honestly don't even remember what it was about. But I do remember thinking, ChatGPT would handle this like a pro. Like, why would I write about it? But ChatGPT doesn't generate without prompting. And that means so much knowledge and insight remains hidden away, awaiting the prompt. For now, generative AI is passive, as it should be. It basically regurgitates. Human writers have the potential to be proactive and create that which hasn't been created before, and to bring information and issues to the forefront instead of waiting for the prompt. I'm not writing textbooks. Like, that's not the type of writing I do. I'm taking my lived experience and I'm threading them through the lessons learned of a 30-year career. Generative AI can't do that. So I realized that there's still a need, and will continue to be a need, for a human in the room. The AI tools are at their most useful and least harmful when accompanied by a human whose domain expertise can prompt, guide, correct, and provide nuance on top of what the AI generates. When combined with this guiding human expertise, generative AI can accelerate creativity and creation in transformative ways. About a year later, after getting out of this writer's block, I was part of a panel discussion that was called AI and You, Partners in Productivity, where we panelists shared the ways we were using generative AI with an audience of a few hundred business graduate students. Near the end of the Q&A, someone asked me this question: what's the next big thing in AI? Any of you answer that question? My brain froze a bit, because it feels like the companies and researchers creating AI don't even know what's next in AI. So the words that reflexively came out of my mouth, and I'm known for maybe being a little too reflexive in what I say, but what I said was, the humans fight back. So many of us continue to view AI through a threat-focused lens, worried about all the jobs AI will replace in our economy. That's not an unrealistic view, as we're already starting to see that AI can perform any tasks as well or better than a human in a tireless way that is only limited by computing power and energy. AI is disrupting the economy, and there will be short-term negative impacts on certain classes of jobs. Just as the Industrial Revolution displaced many manual laborers and computers took over clerical tasks, AI is automating a wide range of jobs. These changes will cause job loss and uncertainty for some, but they're part of a broader pattern we've seen before, where new technologies initially displace workers and eventually lead to creation of new opportunities and industries. In some domains, generative AI is approaching or even surpassing the performance of average knowledge workers, particularly in tasks involving pattern recognition and data analysis. So does this leave us as humans as endangered or underemployed species? Perhaps, if we sit back and just let AI stay in the driver's seat. But there's a more positive outlook on the future. What if we leverage AI so thoroughly and intentionally that it allows us the freedom to fundamentally redefine what it means to be human? It's a pretty abstract question. So I'm going to explore that and what that could mean in concrete terms. I tend to find life more enjoyable when I embrace optimism sprinkled with a healthy dose of reality. What I'm about to present is optimistic. When talking about AI, it's understandably easy to sink into dystopian perspectives that are based on 100+ years of science fiction or more recent creations like the Netflix series Black Mirror or Pixar's WALL-E, that if you are familiar with those. We absolutely have to reduce the energy consumption and environmental impacts of AI. We need to mitigate the bias present in many AI-driven systems. We need to soften the economic disruption through reskilling programs and perhaps transitional income supports. We need to resolve the issues surrounding copyright and content compensation. We should be concerned about the uncomfortable coziness between billionaire CEOs of AI companies and our government, regardless of party. If we don't figure out how to reduce the cost, we risk creating a new digital divide among learners and earners. There are obvious challenges here, but AI is not going away. I find it more productive to focus on how we make it work for us rather than Chicken Little our way into helplessness. The sky is not falling. So let's look at what AI can do for us as humans. AI can do our mundane tasks for us. This is probably the most common thing that people, say when they kind of rally around AI. What percentage of our jobs is made up of tasks that we have to do, but we don't add any unique value in doing them? Like, these are the drudgery, the things that we dread doing, the repetitive bureaucracy, the process tasks, the same answers that customers or students over and over and over and over again. In my mind, there's a simple litmus test here. If AI or some other sort of automation can do a task as well or better than you can, we should let the technology do it for us. A human existence without drudgery? Sign me up. I host 2 different podcasts in my free time. The show notes, the episode titles, and much of the social media promotion are done with AI. Simply by feeding the automated transcripts into a custom GPT that writes and formats them. This allows me to focus on what's important, making the content of the conversation as valuable as it can be. I spend my time identifying interesting guests, working on developing conversation questions, and editing the interviews, all places where my skills can add value. AI can help us sort through options and consider alternatives more quickly. How many of us get stuck in analysis paralysis or overthink even the smallest choices? I see there are a few raised hands in the room. It's true that some of us are terrible at making decisions, but in my experience, that's most often because of poor information. Generative AI gives you the world's information at your fingertips in an interface that assists you in thinking through your options in an informed sequential way that can be customized to you. I've built a custom GPT that's called my thought partner. It is informed by my personal and team values and goals and trained to help me work through challenges in a conversational way. With AI as a partner, we can be better thinkers and problem solvers. Here's an example. Last spring, I found myself leading 4 major initiatives, and I was seriously overcommitted. I asked my thought partner to walk me through the decision of which responsibility to drop. You can see right out of the gate, I asked the question, here's the 4 things I'm involved in. It actually gives me a recommendation on which 2 things I might want to drop just from that. I'm like, you know what? You didn't really think through this with me. You're just giving me an answer. So I then prompted it again. I asked it to dive deeper with questions about each role. So what should I consider about each of those different roles? And so after going through this process, I was able to consider these questions, and I eventually made the decision to drop the 2 roles where other people could take over. Human expertise is more important in a world of ubiquitous AI. Think about it. If AI can create good or even high quality content on almost any subject on demand in a matter of seconds, then every human with a GPT can be an expert. How does that feel in academia? Right? Or can they? Is that true? Can anybody become an expert? I think in a world where information is democratized like this, is anyone an expert? I believe we're going to witness a new dawn of expertise in the world, where humans who can combine the partner power of AI with their human intellect to synthesize, combine, and analyze will become new mega experts. AI can also open our increasingly echo-chambered and misinformed minds. I'm in the middle of reading Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. The book was written in 2012, well before the onslaught of generative AI or the extreme hyperpartisanship we're seeing today. The divisions that Haidt describes are even more pronounced today, and they appear intractable. He notes that when attempting to bridge these gaps, quote, the persuader's goal should be to convey respect, warmth, and an openness to dialogue before stating one's own case. No matter how good our logic, it's not going to find our opponent if they're in combat. Haidt's work is relevant to generative AI. In fact, a recent study out of the Sloan School of Management finds that an AI chatbot had the ability to sustain tailored counterarguments and personalized in-depth conversations that reduced participants' belief in conspiracy for months, challenging research suggesting that beliefs are impervious to change. It's possible here that the affability of AI, if AI is programmed to make you feel good, right? So it kind of butters you up. Like if you ever interacted with any of these things, it kind of butters you up. The affability of AI is much better than humans at softening the approach. So the recipient lowers their defenses that previously blocked their openness to new information. Learning and understanding are personalized. 5 years ago, if I wanted to learn something, I was at the mercy of the instructor's perspective, whether that's in a formal classroom environment or a YouTube video. In so many cases, I'd either tune out because I didn't appreciate their style, or the topic was presented in a way that I didn't understand. With AI as a partner, I can ask clarifying questions on the topic or ask it to explain things to me at different levels and from different perspectives. I can say I learn best this way. Please use this instructional approach or complexity level with me. Instructors themselves can be more relevant by transitioning from content provider to facilitator of advanced synthesis and analysis. Just think about what that can do for the leveling up of human knowledge and understanding. I'd like to offer a bit of an aside here. Just this week, Illinois professor and his PhD student published a paper evaluating how ChatGPT completed a semester-long engineering course. ChatGPT, by itself, with no human interaction, got an 82% in the course. Okay. I don't claim to be a pedagogy expert. I'm not sure I want to be a pedagogy expert. But if we don't figure out how to assess competency in a way that embraces AI, we're going to be turning out graduates who haven't done the work. That's a really scary thought. Right? Imagine civil engineers who haven't done the work. Civil engineers built bridges, right? There are real implications here. So now back to how AI can help us as humans. We can have a safe place to practice. Last year, I experienced the ChatGPT plus virtual reality simulation for learning people management skills. In the scenario I chose, I practiced having a difficult conversation with an employee who'd been showing up late for work and missing deadlines. It was a virtual reality headset, so I put on the headset and fired up avatar named Travis. Travis, an already agitated employee with ChatGPT for a brain. Travis says, I see you called this meeting. What's it about? How many of you have been in a similar situation as a manager, or maybe you were Travis? Right? So I managed to walk Travis through the issues, check in to see if there's something that's getting in the way of his performance, while making sure he understood our expectations. As the simulation ended, Travis was more calm and agreed to do a better job with my support as his manager. Travis disappeared, and the simulation then gave me feedback on how I'd done, noting that I offered a good balance of empathy and expectation. I've had a ton of similar conversations with real people. I've been managing for, over a decade now. These are real conversations we have on a daily basis with people. 30 seconds into this, it felt real. Like, really real. I would absolutely put a new manager in these types of simulations rather than have them practice on real people. Just think about how many broken work relationships we could avoid if we had the ability to fail and learn safely. I also think that human creativity can soar. Imagine what humans do creatively if they're unburdened by the mundane tasks of life. Creativity in scientific discovery, writing, art, music, education. AI will certainly replace some of the lower level creative tasks that we do. For example, all of the images in this presentation were created by a custom GPT with DALL-E. As you can see, this is the instructions for the custom GPT you're seeing here on the screen. I specified the size, orientation, the color palette, and the artistic style that I wanted. I simply had to provide the text for each section of the slide, or for each slide, and it created images relevant to that section of the talk. Does it matter that the image isn't a handcrafted work of art? No, because it's disposable. Right? The time I would have spent crafting or finding an image was better spent in preparing what I was going to say. If we use AI appropriately, we create time to do higher level things where human ingenuity and thought surpasses what AI can provide. It's higher value and it's more fulfilling. We can have more time for genuine human connection and intentional connection. Recently, I watched a TED conversation between technologist Kylan Gibbs and psychologist Brian Lowry. Lowry noted, what fundamentally makes us human is our connection to other human beings and our ability to engage with others. This is what excites me most about the advances in AI. If AI allows me more time in my life to intentionally prioritize and create more and deeper connections with people, both professionally and personally, then AI fundamentally changes my capacity to be truly human. Our ability to connect, to collaborate, to love is so tethered by the limitations of time and space. Why wouldn't we embrace something that could significantly free us from those shackles? Okay, we can work less. I want y'all to hear me out on this. So much of the excitement about AI is focused on its ability to make us more productive by enabling us to complete tasks faster. But what are we expected to do with all that saved time? We're expected to work more, right? Our world, at least the world of capital-driven nations, is predicated on productivity and profitability. So AI is seen through a lens of profit and production. Like all technology advancements before it, AI is never seen through a lens of human prosperity. I don't mean prosperity as in material wealth, but prosperity in the form of human connection, fulfillment, and community well-being. What if the centuries of technological improvement are actually leading us to a place that is less production-focused and more connection-focused? Could we use that time that AI saves to work on our personal relationships? Could we dedicate more of our days to building community? Might AI free us up to do the hard work on ourselves required to be better humans and citizens in the world? maybe, just maybe, the highest human purpose isn't labor. Maybe it's connection and community. Could AI do the work while we're free to pursue a higher purpose? Is this some pie in the sky dream? Maybe. But I encourage you to at least consider that AI's highest value may not be enabling us to work more. So up to this point, I've been talking at a high level about how we can leverage AI as humans. I'd like to shift my focus now to how I've been using AI to be a better human. First, I need to define what I mean by being a better human. As a better human, I'm more engaged. I'm more willing to start. I'm more self-aware. I'm growing faster as a leader. I'm more knowledgeable. I'm a better writer. And I'm more open-minded. So let's dive into each one of those. I said I'm more engaged. This is primarily where the time savings. I think you can all understand when I say there's a lot of administrative sludge in all organizations. Higher ed has its own special kind of administrative sludge. And it can take an enormous amount of time that is better engaged in strategy, critical conversations, and decision-making. I haven't written a job description, a committee charge, or an administrative policy document from scratch since I first got ChatGPT. Before starting to write anything for work that's of the administrative variety, I will always ask, has this been done by countless people across countless universities in the past? That's a good job for ChatGPT to take a crack at first. I will always refine the language and context, but there's absolutely no reason why we should be writing first drafts of these types of things anymore. I will note that there's an emotional aspect to this, and that I need to be careful where I use Gen AI in these administrative tasks. I have to consider the recipient of the output and their expectations. Last year, I decided to use ChatGPT to write performance evaluations for 2 of my managers as an experiment. I hate writing performance evaluations. It's just something I've never really, I've always felt that if a performance evaluation has any sort of surprise in it, I haven't done my job as a manager throughout the year. To me, it was always just sort of this performative summary that you had to do at the end of the year. So I fed their self-evaluations into ChatGPT, and I added a few lines of my opinion to the prompt and outflowed beautiful evaluations. I thought they were great. A lot more descriptive than I ever would have taken the time to write. To be fully transparent, I told my manager that I had used AI and asked them to give me candid feedback. I was smart enough not to do it for my entire team and just hand them out. I'm going to try this. We're going to play around with this a little bit. Their reaction, they absolutely hated the evaluation. Hated them. And they said it didn't sound like me at all. They also expressed that the effort that I would have spent writing their evaluations by hand was meaningful. It meant something to them that I took time to reflect and articulate. They saw the writing as real engagement. It was kind of a gift to them. I'd never thought of it that way. I'd always thought of it as this administrative drudgery that I was talking about before. So now, whenever I'm considering using ChatGPT for something, I ask whether my manual completion of the task has value that's separate from the output itself. It's a little like taking high school calculus class where it's important to show the work. I'm also more willing to start. I've taken a lot of personality and work style assessments over the years, and they all point squarely in the same direction. I'm a big picture thinker, strong communicator, engaged relationship builder, and a little mediocre at execution. It's why I always say I can't accomplish anything without my team. Getting things done as an individual contributor is my Achilles heel. I can procrastinate with the best of them when it comes to things that I don't care deeply about, but still must do. AI is a jumpstart for me. Whether I prompt for ideas, an outline, or a first draft, AI is your first step towards getting these things done. There's something psychologically motivating about 3 seconds of prompting and get me ahead 30 minutes on a task. I'm also more self-aware. This is where I get beyond productivity and into deeper meaning. Generative AI tools that save your prompts are really good at getting to know you, especially if your prompts are primarily related to you and your role. Any of you in the audience use ChatGPT or another tool a lot that saves your prompts? Have you ever asked it what it thinks about you? And do that. It's a really interesting experience. Just the other day, I asked ChatGPT what I needed to work on, and I asked it also to take a pessimistic view. Because sometimes, as I said before, it wants to make you happy. So if you don't specifically ask it to take a pessimistic view, it's all rainbows and sunshine about you. But I said, take a pessimistic view. Its answer was a little too real. And I think it's worth sharing here. So this is what it gave me. I'm going to read it because I think it's worth reading. You have lots of ideas, but you might spread yourself too thin, jumping between leadership, AI, podcasting, strategy, and personal growth without going deep enough in any one area to make a lasting impact. Ambitious, but do you follow through on the big things? As a leader, you're thoughtful and strategic with getting a clear direction, or are you getting caught up in details that you delegate? You've mentioned struggling with distractions, but what if it's not just about focus, but about avoiding having hard long-term decisions? You care about inclusion in team culture, but are you doing enough to actively shape it? Are you hoping that being a good leader will make things fall into place naturally? Big shifts like a reorg need clear, decisive leadership. Are you prepared to make tough calls even if they upset people? You have strong insights on AI and leadership. I hope so, because y'all invited me here. But you are positioning yourself as a real thought leader. Are you positioning yourself as a real thought leader or just dabbling? If you want influence beyond your current role, are you taking enough risks to put yourself out there in a meaningful way? And then it gets nice. Because none of this means you're failing, but if any of it stings, it might be worth asking why. Now, I've had multiple professional leadership coaches throughout my career. None of them have been that direct with me. None of them, right? And they've been paid a lot of money for their jobs. That's good advice. That's good, thought-provoking, self-awareness building conversation. There's real value in having this kind of feedback to help build greater self-awareness. AI is good at seeing patterns that thread through all of my interactions with it. It remembers everything you've asked it, and then it can find insight in those patterns. I'm also growing faster as a leader. I've been leading large teams for 13 years. I give myself an above average score as far as leadership skills go. I have a refined leadership intuition that has served me well. Despite this, there are some times when my skill and intuition run into challenges that I can't surmount alone. I often call these my boulders. There are some of these boulders that even my coaches and confidants can't help me move. Rather than suffer the fate of Sisyphus in a futile attempt to roll the boulder uphill, I'll engage ChatGPT in a coaching exercise. I'll describe the challenge and offer different ways I've tried to solve the problem. What I get back without fail is encouragement for what I've tried, wants to pat me on the back, and additional ideas that I haven't tried. I'd estimate that 70% of what ChatGPT gives me, I've already considered, but there's always a different take on things. When we confront these boulders in our lives, we can think we're the only one who's ever faced this particular challenge. Chances are, though, it's not unique and that someone has written about how they've that particular problem. If that's the case, the generative AI tools can likely surface that information for you and quickly. While Gen AI can still struggle with specific facts, don't ask it about who the general was in the War of 1812. Like if there's a chance it's going to get that kind of thing wrong. It's exceptionally good with what I call the squishy stuff. Things like dealing with difficult employees or strategies for engaging disinterested stakeholders. And it's there 24/7 when you need it. I was just talking to somebody before this started that I use voice activation in ChatGPT now. I can run it through my car and have conversations while I'm driving. That's a pretty good use of time to be able to have a conversation when I'm alone. Right? You don't normally get that kind of thing. So I'm absolutely a better leader and manager because of this AI coaching. I'm also more knowledgeable. I believe that I'm a better human when I have more data. I don't know how all of you feel about that, but I think information makes me a better human being. I make better decisions. I'm more understanding. I feel more genuinely confident in and connected to the world. My wife playfully chides me when I pull out my phone to answer a question we have. I love knowing. Generative AI has taken this to entirely new levels. It not only provides answers, but it allows me to explore in my own direction. A Google search returns static documents. A Gen AI prompt allows me to ask for levels of specificity and verbosity, as well as follow up for clarification. I'll share a very personal example of this here. A year ago, I went through a battery of medical tests that had me seriously worried for my long-term health. I used ChatGPT to interpret the lab results that were flowing into the healthcare app on my phone. The test results, which were written in highly technical language, were frightening. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten something on like an app on your phone and go, that sounds like it's the worst thing anyone's ever experienced, and it's happening to me, right? I had a much better understanding of what was going on by running the results through ChatGPT and asking it to explain them to me in layman's terms. So when the doctor came in and visited to discuss, I was able to have a much better informed discussion with them because I understood it in a way that I could understand it. Without ChatGPT, I would have just been in this like fright mode, and probably not even heard what the doctor had to say. Thankfully, everything turned out fine health-wise, still standing here today. And I was a much better patient with that additional information. I'm a better writer. Generative AI makes me a better writer. I don't use it for drafts. This is in my personal writing. I said before I use it for like work administrative stuff. But when I'm like writing from me, I don't use it. I don't use it for drafts or even outlines when I'm writing things that are unique to mine. I actually shun ChatGPT when I'm in that intentionally personal creative process. Once I've got what I think is a publishable piece, that's when Gen AI enters the room. I'll feed it the post through ChatGPT and I'll ask it two critical questions. Did I make any statements in this post that aren't substantial? And did I make logical leaps that may be confusing to the reader? Depending on the answers to those prompts, I may add, remove, or otherwise revise the article before publishing. AI can see these potential issues better than I can because it doesn't have my specific assumptions or understanding in its mind. Okay, I may just assume that my reader will get this leap that I made, but it can point out those things where I may need to explain things. My writing and my thought processes are definitely improved with these simple AI interventions. I'm more open-minded. I can be strong-willed. I've carefully articulated a personal worldview with a solid underpinning in which I'm confident. That can make me less than open-minded when it comes to alternative viewpoints. I also believe that a lack of open-mindedness is what plagues our society. I'm part of the problem. So I've started to experiment using an AI contrarian to question my beliefs and positions, or at least start to understand people who hold beliefs opposite mine. I can certainly confirm the result of the Sloan study I mentioned earlier, It's much easier to hear opposing viewpoints when they're not being screamed at you. It's even easier to hear it when it's coming from what feels like a neutral place with the AI bot. Here are a few examples of how this might work. So I prompted the AI contrarian with the belief that we don't need property taxes. Its response acknowledges my belief without telling me I'm wrong, and then presents some reasons why it might rethink my statement. Right? You can see that it presents arguments like local government funding, prevention of wealth hoarding, real estate market stability, or fairness of tax burden. So I decided to dig in, and I insist that we don't need local government. Right? Again, the bot offers reasons like essential services and infrastructure and lack of representation, all things that make me rethink my opposition. Okay? But it does it in this really affable way. Later, I decided to change my mind and say we should have 80% property taxes. And it lets me know that property taxes that high would kill investment, cause homeowners to leave, and drive up rents. Another time, I prompted it with the belief that our large team needs standardized processes to succeed. This is a more practical belief I might have. It acknowledges that as a possibility and then offers some of the drawbacks to strict process and then asks whether there might be other reasons we're not successful. So it helps me think instead of having that reaction of nobody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, we need more strict processes, we need more policies. Well, maybe there's something else going on there. What could those things be? Could it be better communication? Could it be better prioritization? Is there inconsistent leadership? And so you can really see how it always presents alternative views. I've programmed it to do that. So it'll never actually agree with me, but does it in a way that's non-conflict. So you might ask, what if I actually say something that is not true? So I have it restricted to accepted facts. So it won't offer alternative facts popular in some circles today. For example, if I insist the Earth isn't round, the bot clearly tells me I'm incorrect. It persists even when I push deeper into the falsehood. So it's explaining to me, I can't see it out my window. It's flat out there. The Earth must be flat. So it goes into some simple scientific reasons why Earth isn't flat and that they've proven that. So a funny thing happened on my flight out here yesterday. And this is like universal serendipity. There was a man on the flight who got into a lengthy discussion with the flight attendant about whether the Earth was flat or round. The flight attendant was polite, but adamant that we all know that the Earth is round. But he persisted. He asked how high you needed to be to see the curvature. I was pretty sure at our cruising altitude of 37,000 feet, you could notice it, but there were clouds that looked flat as far as the eye could see. I've never met someone who even questioned this. So I jumped at the opportunity to see how AI could help here. When we landed, I hopped on ChatGPT. I did not have internet on my phone during the flight. Otherwise, I would have done it during the flight. But I hopped on ChatGPT and asked his question. I shared the answer with him. He seemed to be inching towards the round Earth party. Then he said he was going to ask the pilots, at what point do you stop climbing and start going down in relationship to the round Earth? And to my surprise, the flight attendants actually let him pop his head into the cockpit. This is after we landed. But I was in the line to get off, so I walked up the jetway, confused by his question. Like, what did he mean by that? Then it struck me. He was thinking that you had to climb up the curvature, and then you would start descending on the other side. Yeah, you don't understand how curvature works, you might think that, like a hill or a roller coaster. He was no longer around, but I was curious what ChatGPT would say to him. So I asked, how does a plane traverse the curvature? I wish I had a chance to talk more with him and see if the answers would have given him more confidence in the Earth's roundness. At the very least, I learned a few more details that confirmed something I've believed well forever. So perhaps AI can help us change our own minds or just better understand those beliefs and facts that we create. So a few final thoughts. At its core, this isn't just a conversation about AI. It's a conversation about how humanity and what we choose to prioritize as we integrate these technologies into our daily lives. We stand at an inflection point where AI can either be a force that diminishes our agency, creativity, and connection, or one that amplifies our best qualities and enables us to focus on what truly matters. The choice is still ours to make. This is why I believe the most important role of AI isn't to replace us, but to reveal to us what is uniquely human. It forces us to ask, what do we that AI cannot? What does it mean to create, to connect, to lead, to innovate? How do we ensure that AI becomes an accelerant for human flourishing rather than a crutch for our complacency? These are not just theoretical questions. They're the defining challenges of our time. So I challenge each of you in your own work and lives to think about AI not just as a tool for productivity, but as a catalyst for becoming better humans. Use it to strip away the noise and focus on the substance. Use it to deepen your curiosity and challenge yourself. Use it to create more space for relationships, for reflection, for the kind of meaningful work that fuels progress, not just at work, but in your life. Because if we do this right, if we harness AI with intention, with wisdom, and with commitment to make what makes us human, then perhaps the greatest outcome of this technology revolution won't be that AI gets better. It will be that we do. So thank you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you might have. Yes.
Thank you for such a insightful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I've ever enjoyed a presentation about AI as much as I enjoyed this one.
Thank you.
I told you earlier that I like typewriters, and I think I'd rather live in the 60s. But I do have a question. You know, I have tried using ChatGPT a little bit recently, and I noticed the same issue with my prompts was present in the responses it gave you, actually, is that it always wants to provide an answer. It doesn't want to say like, I don't know, or you know what, I don't have a whole lot of useful stuff to say about this particular question. It's almost arrogant. And in its arrogance, it offers logically inconsistent like ideas. In your example, it gave you two mutually exclusive points when it criticized your approach. It basically said like you're too detail oriented and not taking big picture, but then it also said you're like in the big picture clouds and not paying attention to the details. It phrased it differently, but it was obvious that it actually was not consistent with itself. And I noticed that problem too, is that it always wants to provide a longer answer rather than a briefer one. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so to repeat for the folks online that maybe didn't hear that, the question is basically, does ChatGPT have any way of censoring itself and restricting itself when it doesn't really know the answer? The answer is currently no, it doesn't. Because, and this is something that if you read Ethan Mollick's book, which I can't remember the title of right now, but Ethan Mollick is a professor who is one of the leading voices in AI in the world right now. And he says in the book, AI wants you to like it. It wants you to like it, right? It wants to make you feel good. And it thinks you feel good when you have an answer. Like it doesn't want to give you ambiguity. It wants to provide clarity for you because it's sort of programmed to give you clarity. And it can overstep. And one of the things you have to know, if you're asking it about things that are kind of technically specific, it's really important that you have the expertise to know whether or not it has actually said something that's, counter to fact. I think Dean Ray and I were talking about earlier, he had used ChatGPT for something and it actually gave him factually incorrect information, right? You have to know the subject matter to interact with it well and to use it the best way you can. And then the other thing is, like, you as a human need to know, even if it says something and you go, wait, those two things are conflicting with each other. You go, okay, those are conflicting with each other. And then think through that as a person and say, which one of these things actually makes more sense to me, right? If they're opposed to one another. How many of you have seen the movie A Christmas Story? The pink bunny suit, Aunt Clara gives Ralphie for Christmas. Like, AI gives you gifts, you don't have to wear them all. Just remember that. It's like, it is not the end all be all in truth. That's why I say it like it's better than the swishy stuff, because it allows you to play with the idea of it.
Yeah, and it's also so interesting because but it also kind of knows its limitations, because I asked it to do references and it will do references, and I say that's not right. Are you sure? So I said, oh, never mind. I made mistakes. Let me give you the correct references. Then I say, are you sure this time? Yeah. Oh no, never mind. Right? And it's like after 4 times he was sure.
Yeah. If you try to get it to do something very specific, it does not do that very well. It's very much like a human in that sense. Like, if you think about it, like if we can be having a conversation and you give me 3 items of advice, you could give me 2 that are opposed to each other. And it's up to me to know that, right? And not just take your word for it. So it's like, I almost in some ways look at Gen AI through a lens of, if this were a person saying these things to me, would I question it? And that's to me, that's a good way of filtering that particular problem with it. But yeah, these are not perfect tools at all. They're getting better though. Like they're getting really, really good. And they may be better than humans eventually. There's a part of me that hopes that doesn't happen, because I think there are like gigantic societal implications if we get to that point. Thanks for the question. Other questions? Yes.
Have you asked it to roast you?
Say again?
Have you asked ChatGPT to roast you?
I have not asked it to roast me yet. If I were super brave, I'd pull it up right now and do that. I'm not quite that brave, but I will try to do that. I'm sure it would be hilarious and I would appreciate it. But if you have a paid account that remembers your things, it knows so much. It's like almost creepy the amount of information it can infer just for what you ask it.
So when is it going to replace professors?
I know.
Never.
Okay.
As long as the professors are willing to change the way they approach things. In our conversation earlier, I told my favorite joke, my favorite academic joke. It's a clean academic joke. It's, if Thomas Jefferson were to come back today, what would be the only thing he recognized? The answer is higher ed. Because we haven't changed a lot.
No. Right? You wouldn't recognize a thing that too.
And there's some hyperbole in that joke, right? We certainly have changed from 200 or 300 years ago. But we haven't changed much, right? There's still this primarily sage on the stage. I'm going to provide my content to you. I'm going to evaluate you on how well you assimilated that content. Like, those days are over. Like that study from the U of I professor that showed that ChatGPT can like have a passing grade on a course with no human intervention. That instructor needs to rethink how they're doing evaluation. Like, what does competence mean now? And competence probably has to be evaluated with AI as a partner, because that's how all these people are going to be using AI in their lives, right? We need to say, can you build a bridge with the help of AI, and how do you evaluate that? This is like a truly pivotal moment, but I do think that there's still room for that instructor to come in and still be an amazing facilitator of the interactions with their knowledge, with AI's knowledge, so that we impart real competence in the part of our students. But we can't keep doing the same things. So, and I expect that there's going to be a lot of faculty who decide just to say, you know what, I'm taking early retirement rather than having to deal with this. And that's their choice, right? I don't fault them. This is going to be a major change. There's, I'll tell a short story here. That during the pandemic, there's one of our MBA professors at Gies who was in his final semester of teaching, and we went remote. This guy was like Luddite when it came to technology, like was completely afraid of it. Really great MBA professor, but just had no grasp of technology. So he set up camp in one of the conference rooms right next to our IT help desk. And he brought his wife in to help him. And he was like, I'm done, I'm out the door, I'm not doing this, but I have to do this like last little piece. But he was not going to exist in a world with this kind of like level of technology. Like he could not have handled this. And there will be some that don't. And there will be some that like adapt. We have some faculty members who are like diving deeply into this and seeing how it can improve their teaching, improve student outcomes. And as with any technology, there's different levels of adoption. Yes.
We have a question from our Zoom audience.
Yeah.
Joseph asks, I'm curious what the speaker sees unfolding in the next 1, 3, 5 years with AI. And you've already answered the education part, but they put education, workforce, economy, art, human relationships, and community. So it's a loaded one.
Do you want me to invite me back? To give another talk on that. I honestly don't think that there is any way to predict what is actually going to happen even 1 year from now. Like this technology is accelerating so quickly that there are people that think that we are going to hit AGI within a year. Like that's like mind-blowing. Like to where these agents can be completely autonomous and be better than humans. Like if that happens in the next year, like all bets are off. Like I don't have enough expertise to even posit what might happen there. The thing that I will say though is I think that the impact of all of this is going to be we will have a gap between those who can leverage this and leverage it well and combine their expertise with this technology and those that refuse to do that. Like, there will be a success gap in that. I'm not saying that they're necessarily going to be better humans like I was talking about earlier, but there will, if in our world of productivity and profitability, people who are using AI will end up being better off than those that aren't. There's a pithy phrase that has gone around on the internet that you're not going to lose your job to AI, but you're going to lose your job to somebody using AI. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like, so we should be figuring out what are the right ways to be using this technology.
Joseph says yes, come back for round 2. And then we've got a question from Mary Beth. She says, do you have any thoughts about how best to help undergraduate students navigate AI? I tell my students I don't want AI writing in their papers, but I have a feeling I'm missing an opportunity to help them navigate the technology. Great talk, thank you.
So last year, the head of AI for PricewaterhouseCoopers came to talk to our undergraduate students. He's an alum, and he came and he asked the question, how many of you are using AI in your studies? And it's just a smattering of hands. It's an auditorium full of students, and just a smattering of hands went up. And like, I don't necessarily trust undergraduates when you ask them, are they using it or not? Because there's a lot of them that don't want to admit that they're using it because they might get in trouble. But then he asked, how many of you are worried about what this is going to do to your the job offerings? the entire room put their hands up. That's what they're concerned about. We're actually starting to see, and we're just about to do a series of focus groups with students on our campus about how they're using it, what their attitudes are. We're actually seeing a great deal of pushback, like anecdotally, of students going, I don't like this. I don't think it's good. A lot of them tend to be more in the humanities and kind of the creative side of campus. My son is a musician. He's a music technology major. He thinks from an artistic perspective, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Because, you know, I just had a teammate of mine, I won't go into the whole story, but she sent me a song that she created in one of the AI sites that you can create songs with. And it sounded like something you'd hear on pop radio, like indistinguishable. Like that's probably not good for creative types. So I think the thing that we need to be, like, we need to be real with undergraduates. We need to like truly listen to them and find out like what are the things that are frightening to them? What are the things they don't understand about this? How can we help them get to a place where they don't feel like their job prospects are being threatened by this? And in my mind, the only way to do that is to lean into it and like really learn how whatever industry that you're hoping to go into, find out how that industry is starting to leverage AI in the industry and then figure out how to use the AI that way, because there's going to be major economic impacts here, and how we help our students is to help them get the skills to navigate those impacts. I wish I had a like fuzzier, warmer, fuzzier answer than that, but that's the reality of it.
Yes, you were talking about how using AI can increase human connection, right? I understood that correctly. You referenced that you would talk to AI while you're driving, and that I think it's Google Gemini just came out and ran a series of absolutely obnoxious ads with people trying to talk to the phone. How does one weigh speaking with AI in free time against using AI to clear up time for more connections with humans?
So the question is if I'm connecting with AI, part of the question is if I'm connecting with AI on a regular basis, how am I actually creating more human connection through doing that? The answer is, if there's a person in the room with me, I'm never going to turn to AI first, right? I'm always going to connect with the human. The only reason I use it when I'm in the car is I've got some custom GPT set up that I can just call that up, and it's programmed, it's gated to talk to me in a certain way, and it helps me like think through. If I'm ruminating on something, it'll just help me go through that process. Like, I think if you take that to the nth degree, and the AI becomes a friend of yours, that's probably not healthy, right? Now, on the other hand, in the event that Josh and I were at last summer, they were talking about AI with robotics and humanoid robotics. And could you have humanoid robots that are powered by AI keeping isolated elderly people company that had no other options? It actually creates a connection so they feel like they can talk to somebody. Like, that might be value add. But if me in the prime of my life with plenty of friends and colleagues, if I'm sitting in my office just talking to AI, that's probably not great.
So to tack up on or to follow up on that, you've got different versions of GPT to kind of get different responses out of it. You're turning to that rather than perhaps a teammate or a friend or a coach or something that you could call on that. That's kind of what I'm trying to manage.
So I think I generally turn to ChatGPT as last resort in those cases. And so it's not replacing those human relationships that I have, those coaches that I have. I did say that it was better than most of the professional coaches that I've had. But there's one way I've used it where we had this one staffing issue that was just intractable. We just could not get through to this guy. We had tried everything, multiple managers, all kinds of things. And I finally said, you know what, I'm going to go to ChatGPT, and it gave us a few extra options that we hadn't considered. And a couple of them actually made some difference. And so to me, it's not my place that I go to advice first, if that makes sense. And on the other side, like, I have to create time in my life for better human connection. And this thing saves me time. Like, just no doubt about it.
Chris, I got a question. I listened to a podcast recently with Sam Altman, and he said the last thing, and potentially never to be replaced by AI, is ethics. What do you think of that statement? I know you didn't finish the minor at Notre Dame, but what do you make of that statement, right? Because, I mean, he's about as front and center on AI development as you get. So for him to say, you know, human ethics is going to be the last stand, or maybe never replaced by AI, what do you think of that?
I think that is perfectly in alignment with the statement that I made to that room full of business graduate students: the humans fight back. Right? If we give up our ability to define morality and ethics, we might as well just pack it in as a species. Like, that's the thing. We have to be in control of this. At the event we were at, one of the presenters showed a picture of, like, the same street in New York City. Oh yeah. It's at 20 years apart or something like that. And the one picture, it was all horse-drawn carriages in one motorized vehicle. And then 20 years later, it was one horse-drawn carriage and all else motor vehicles. And his question was, are we the horse? And my answer to that was, that's not the right analogy for AI, because the horse didn't create the car, right? We created AI. We are in control of this thing. Like, we need to be in control of this thing. If we're not, that's when it gets out of hand. That's where, like, the whole AGI thing gets a little.
Yeah, that was your mic drop moment at that conference, right? Everyone was like, whoa. So,
yeah, like, we're not the horse. And so I'm glad that Sam Altman is saying that, because he is in control of a lot of this, right? And, you know, and whatever your politics are, there is no regulation coming for AI anywhere in the near future in this country. Like, the EU may do its own thing, but there will be no AI regulation in the United States, at least for the next 4 years. You can mark my words on that. We need people to be deciding and being intentional about how we're going to use these. And we define the ethics around how we use them. So, great question. Yes.
Roman from Zoom wants to know, which AI program can you use in your car?
So it's ChatGPT with advanced voice. Others may have the same functionality, but it just allows me to click a button, and then it's a real-time conversation. I can actually interrupt it. If it's talking, I can just start talking over it, and it will stop and listen to me. And it needs a really good internet connection to do it. So if you're driving out in the middle of nowhere, it's a little difficult, but it's yeah. So I think we are past time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.